It's Divas That Care Radio. Stories, strategies, and ideas to inspire positive change. Welcome to Divas That Care, a network of women committed to making our world a better place for everyone. This is a global movement for women, by women, engaged in a collaborative effort to create a better world for future generations. To find out more about the movement, visit divasthatcare.com after the show. Right now, though, stay tuned for another jolt of inspiration.
Magical day to all. Welcome to Divas That Care Network. I am Joyce Benning, and I will be your host for this incredible, invigorating, robust lifestyle show. I would like to thank each one of our listeners that will be listening to this podcast on the numerous different platforms. I am so very grateful and thankful for each and every one of you. And as I said, you are in for one invigorating show today, as I have with me my amazing returning diva, Deb Matlock. And her and I are going to chat about creative ways of expressing connection to nature. Oh my, is this going to be a fun show? And with that, Deb, would you introduce yourself to our listeners, please, today?
Absolutely. I'm so happy to be here. As Joyce said, my name is Deb Matlock, and I am in Colorado. And my passion is nature connection, whether that's a spiritual nature connection or helping people who offer nature connection programming, design their work for their own clients. I'm all kinds of interested in how we connect to our places and the animals in our lives. And I run a small business called Wild Rhythms.
Oh, I love it. And that just so fits into our topic today of expressing our connection to nature. It's exactly what you do. And I love how you brought in the spirituality part of it too, because sometimes we forget that we can spiritually connect to everything around us in nature. So, oh, I love this. This is going to be a great show. So with that, Deb, how would you like to start to give our listeners some ideas, some tips on the ways to connect to nature?
Yeah, I love the starting point, and I love that you mentioned again the spiritual piece because I feel like our all the different ways that we connect to the natural world, and by the natural world I mean outside, I mean indoors, the wood that makes our chairs, the food that we eat, the fibers that are woven into our sheets. Like the natural world is everywhere. So I want to be clear that I'm not just talking about only outdoors, although of course being outdoors is amazing and lovely, and whenever we can do it, it's so valuable. But I think if we look at all the ways that we personally, each of us, feel a connection to the natural world, how that looks for each of us can be very similar, and it can also be very different. And I think the beginning of this conversation of how do we express that, how do we creatively express it and explore it, is to acknowledge that for each one of us, it's at both a universal experience and also a very personal, intimate experience, kind of all in one.
Oh, I so agree with you because to me, there is no right or wrong way on connecting to nature. And I love how you brought in how we can connect to it indoors too, because I'm sitting at my desk. I have a wooden desk. I'm like, okay, this wood came from a tree somewhere out there, and I collect feathers that are laying on the ground. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, what a spiritual connection I have. I've just got feathers all over in my office. And it's just, it's just another way that I feel connected to nature, whether I'm inside or whether I'm outside. And I can even see it in pictures. I have a little red bird on a branch in pictures, and it just connects me and brings back the vision of what they look like outside. So there's so many different ways that we can connect to nature, be it inside or outside.
Oh, I think you're so right. And I love what you were just saying about your office and your desk. And I'm laughing because I have a pile of feathers that I found in my garden that are here on my desk as well. And I have some rocks and a pine cone. And I think one of the ways that we can kind of explore our own connection is exactly that. What is it that we can bring into our life indoors that reminds us of our love of the outdoors and of wildlife, and I think that um that can be pictures, it can be paintings, it can be, photographs that we've taken or somebody else has taken. It can be the found, the feather that we find on our front porch. I actually found a little feather on my front porch the other day, and sometimes I leave the feathers outside, and sometimes I sit and I'm like, I feel like this one wants to come inside, and I just take a moment and like, letting ourselves realize that expression, that creative expression of our home environment can absolutely reflect our connections. And I've seen people do this with the colors they choose for throw pillows or paint, or the patterns on dishes or tablecloths, where they just like I mean I have a friend who loves the fall leaves and the color of leaves in the fall. And so she deliberately made herself a tablecloth with beautiful fall leaves all over it. She uses it all year round. She's like, I want to see these all year. There aren't leaves outside, but there are sure as heck leaves on my kitchen table right now. And I think if we allow that creative connection like that, we can sort of enliven that part of our soul, even if we're sitting inside at our desk, at our computers or whatever we're doing. We can turn and see that picture or that image or that seashell. I've got a seashell here that reminds me of my grandmother who's long since passed, but it's sitting here on my desk right next to my keyboard. And it reminds me of the ocean and finding this shell with her. It reminds me of her, and it's an expression of my nature connection.
Yeah. Oh, how true that is. And when you speak of shells, I have them too, because I found a lot of them out in the creek, and they are just so beautiful. And it's like they are saying to me, I can come indoors and be with you just like I can be out here. And I'm bringing that part of nature inside. And the other thought that came to my mind for gardening, I mean, some people can even be in an apartment and have a little pot setting outside with some herbs or a tomato plant or something. And when you bring that food in, the nourishment that it gives you, the fun and the beauty you had of seeing it grow outdoors, and then come in and let it nourish your body. It's a full circle connection to me, because you've planted this little seed or this little plant, you've watched it grow, and now it's going to nourish your body too. And it's just a beautiful way to show a creative way to express your connection to nature in that aspect too.
Oh my gosh, yes. And I think gardening is that's a much bigger conversation we can go into. I actually had that in my mind as well, as one of those ways that we express our relationship, how we go about gardening, how we interact with our gardens and all the beings that the gardens attract, how we enjoy, how we deal with the frustrations, all of those pieces are such it's about that relationship, and it's about that express connection. And here in Colorado, I love to garden, and I love I have my whole front yard is native plants and for pollinators, and most of the time it does pretty well in our climate. But there are times where we have a really rainy spring where everything will explode, and then we have a really warm July, and then everything kind of fizzles. And as a gardener, I can feel that frustration, but also it has me deeply, intimately connecting with the place and the rhythms of the seasons and the weather. And how do I now interact? How do I now express, what do I do now? And it kind of puts us front and center in that we are in a dynamic dance with the natural world. And that is part of our connection, and how we want to be in that space. I could get really frustrated, and some days I do, when it's 102 degrees and it's not supposed to be 102 degrees in Colorado. My poor little flowers are out there going, what the heck is this? And other days it's like, the rhythm of it feels alive within us. And I'm not sure if that makes sense, but I think it's just one of those intimate relationships that we can really dig into and grow with.
Oh,
Pardon the pun.
yes, yes. And that is so true. And it's connection too, like knowing when it's 100 degrees, like, and in here, when I know it's going to be a really hot day, these plants are going to need some extra water. They're not saying it, but when you're connected to them, that they need that extra drink for that hot weather. And it's just a beautiful connection you can make to them. And even the little bugs and stuff that are around the gardens and different things, I'm like, okay, I'll share a little bit with you too, but you have to share with me also. We have to come to an agreement here and make it all come together and work. And it reminds me of just another little example of a connection to nature. I was fixing some fence one day, and there was this little garden snake, and he was up on a tree branch, and it was right where I was going to fix the fence. And I said, okay, I need to do this. You can stay in your branch and we can make this work together. And he just kind of slithered over a little bit and just laid there and watched. And it was so cool because it was just like, okay, we can both work together in the same area. Nobody needs to panic. And it's just a connection you can make with them. And for me, the animals understand, nature understands when you understand that they're just in their natural place too, in their own being.
Yeah, and you were probably very interesting for that little snake to watch, like how exciting on a normal day of hanging out on the branch to have somebody coming along to fix a section of fence that and I've experienced similar things where I could tell. I think I mentioned in a previous one of these episodes where I was planting seedlings and this little robin came and was just watching.
Yeah.
And that robin could have been anywhere, could have left, but that robin bounced around, about 10, 15 so feet from me and watched me for probably 20 minutes planting my seedlings. And I thought, well, I'm interested in watching that robin. Perhaps we're also a little interesting for us to be watched. But I think that, when we look at our expression of our connection to nature, the things that are hobbies or livelihoods, like perhaps gardening or ranching, or some of the things that put us, in a regular cadence in a connection with the more than human world, give us just a wealth of opportunities to figure out how we're going to express that.
Right.
Like your reaction to that snake was so beautiful and connective and harmonious. Somebody else might have had a very sad, different reaction, and that snake might not even be here anymore. And all that happened was the snake wanted to watch you.
Yeah.
And I think that we get these choices all the time throughout our days of how do we want to express our connection.
Yeah. How can we, to me, it's how can we connect with them and live in that full circle web together? And because that was his space too. It just happened that he was there. And for me, I look at, there's a reason he was there. It was a connection I could make with him, because he could have been anywhere, in any other tree, on any other branch of that tree. He could have been anywhere, but it was a connection that maybe I didn't even know I needed to make. And I made it that day, and it was just a neat feeling. And so I think if we kind of sometimes just take a step back and take a breath and go, okay, there's a meaning behind this. How can we make this a good connection and make it a positive one to create that full circle web that this world is?
Oh, I love that. I think that is a perfect way to describe it, that we are part of that world, that full circle web.
Mhm.
And we also, as humans, have a lot of opportunity for choice.
Yeah.
We have a lot of opportunity. That little garter snake was not going to have a chance if you had decided to take your fence mending tools and
Yeah.
And so we have this incredible opportunity to be compassionate and kind and gentle and loving, and also revel in this connection and enjoy it and get giddy about it. Like I'm giddy hearing this story. And I know when I've had connections with critters out in the world that were unplanned, my heart is full from those. So there's a little bit of a selfish, I get something out of it too, which just, it fuels me and it makes me feel more alive and more human, but also just more connected and
Yes.
more excited to find other creative ways to express this connection. Like it starts to mean more and more every time those opportunities happen to us. And then we can just continue to grow our way of exploring that.
Oh, yes. And I think that's where the creativity comes in, is thinking of the creative ways and just stopping for a moment and enjoying the beauty of it. Because even like this morning, we were out at the creek, my dog and I, Minka, and there were deer. And I mean, they are so beautiful. There's just deer, I just love them because I just think they're just a beautiful animal. And here a while back, we were going out the pasture and there was probably 3 or 4 of them. And they just kind of stood there and watched for a while just to kind of see what my reaction would be to them. And it was kind of like we can all live in this space together. So, and there's your cat. I mean,
Oh,
the
yes,
audience won't get, the listeners won't get to see it, but she has a cat that just came into the picture now, like, here, I'm part of this nature's connection. I love it.
that's right. Is there a meeting going on? I should be at this meeting. Sorry, I'm late, you know? Yeah, and I love how you brought up the creativity piece because I think when we look at the beauty and we allow ourselves to feel that,
Mhm.
it goes into this amazing expanse of how we can creatively express it. You know, one way is simply nature journaling, and there's no right or wrong way to do that, but just capturing it. You know, if we're inspired or inclined to do that, we don't have to be incredible artists. We can be. We can also scribble. You know, we can use pictures or words. We can have it be anything we want, but it's like it allows that. I think activities like that sometimes allow us to take our experiences one level deeper or even more than one level deeper, you know, and just like, oh wow, I remember that snake or that bird or this the deer at the creek, and just jotting it down with the date and the time and the weather and all the things. And it just, again, it allows us to locate our human story in that bigger beautiful story of the wild world around us, and then remember it.
Yes. Oh, I love that because that does anytime for personally when I read something that I've journaled, it just kind of takes me back into that moment. And if you do that and maybe you're having a dreary day, maybe it's just things are kind of piling up on you, and go back and read what you had wrote on that day. And it's amazing for me how that can bring a smile to your face. And it just kind of it changes your attitude because you're putting yourself back in that moment when you had that beautiful experience.
You know, and I mentioned my grandmother and the seashell at the beginning of this conversation, and I have to say the very first time I ever even heard of journaling, and we didn't call it nature journaling, it was 40 years ago. I was 12 years old and I was visiting my grandmother, and she was from Texas, but for about 3 years they lived in California while my grandfather was working out there. And we were on the beach and walking. But that trip she had left a notebook on the bed where I was going to be sleeping and some colored pencils. And she said, I would just love it if you want to write about your experiences. I was there by myself for the week without the family, you know, so it was,
My word.
and so I wrote in it, and at the end of the week I said, "Do you want to see some of what I wrote?" And she got tears in her eyes. She said, "Oh my gosh, I would be tickled to see it." So fast forward about a year ago, I found that journal and I read my 12-year-old writing, and it took me right back there.
Uh-huh.
40 years to standing on the beach with my grandmother, and things I had forgotten were captured in this journal.
Right.
And so it really just reiterated for me the value of it can be a couple of minutes. It doesn't have to be, it can be hours, you know, but
Yeah.
we can capture, if we want to do this, we can capture it in a short amount of time.
Mhm.
And you know, we can creatively and emotionally express our connection. This is where a lot of times I know for me, the spiritual understandings of my experiences with wild nature start to come up a little bit more when I'm reflecting and writing or
Yeah,
drawing.
I agree.
And I'll see things that maybe I didn't necessarily notice when I was, you know, 3 hours ago when I was out there,
Uh-huh.
you know.
Oh,
Yeah.
that is a beautiful story. I love that because it's almost like you brought back all those 12-year-old memories, and 40 years later you were living back in that and remembering your grandma and what she had done for you. And oh, that is just beautiful, Deb. I love that story. That is so touching, and what a spiritual connection to your grandmother, to nature, to the ocean. In so many ways you recaptured that by just journaling back then and now going back and looking at that. Oh, that brought in so many beautiful ways of how we connect back to nature. Oh, that was beautiful.
Yeah, so that's definitely one thing. If readers are inspired or want to rekindle a previous journaling
Mhm.
experience, or the one thing I would just say though, and I get this way sometimes too, is like page paralysis, where I see all these beautiful nature journaling spreads online and all this. And so one of the things I tell myself, and when I do workshops, I tell people just almost sometimes even just close your eyes and take your pen and scribble on the page. Just
Yeah.
scribble something, because now the page is no longer pure,
Uh-huh.
and there's a shape emerging, and you can then weave in the experiences that you're having around this shape, but it takes away that moment of look at this beautiful blank page in this beautiful journal, and oh my gosh, I don't know what to put on it. I literally close my eyes and scribble sometimes, and it's just
Oh,
like people say, you get that first scratch on a new car. This is like the,
yeah.
the first scratch on the but I've seen it time and again open people up. And
Yes.
so if that helps anybody listening, um, it'd be fun to hear if people try that and if it helps.
Exactly. That is really awesome. It just kind of takes away the stress of thinking, oh, what am I going to journal? I got to do this right. Well, there's no right or wrong. Just make a big mark and start from there. What a
Yeah.
beautiful way.
Yeah. And then the words can go around the mark or the
Yeah.
drawing or the colors, even. I mean,
Mhm.
like I've done journal pages that were just colors. There were
Oh,
no words and there was no imaging. It was just I was out and the colors were I was noticing. So it was just
uh-huh.
splashing the colors of a little meadow on a page.
Oh,
And
how
that was the whole
beautiful.
page. And what it does for us is it allows us to sit there and sink in and see and
Mhm.
feel and experience.
That's the
Um,
beauty. Oh,
yeah,
wow. And bring back all those memories years later. Oh,
years
beautiful.
later. Yeah.
Well, Deb, I knew this show would just fly. I mean, I feel like we just
Yes.
barely started chatting and the show's almost over. I'm like, oh goodness, where'd this go? Because we could just chat and chat about this. This is just beautiful. We brought up so many good tips and tools for the listeners to help them to find their creative ways of expressing their connection to nature. So, with that, as we start to come to a close, would you please share with our listeners the best ways to connect with you, Deb?
Absolutely. I can't believe we're at the end of the call. Wow. I was just like, we could talk. I would be happy to chat with anybody. I have a website, wild-rhythms.com. And I also have a Facebook group, Sacred Connection, Earth, Animals, and Spirit. So if anybody's on Facebook and wants to jump in there, and also people are welcome to join me on other social media, all of which you can find on my website. And I've also got a contact form there to reach me directly. And I'm the one who reads that form, so it'll come straight to me if somebody has afterthoughts of this conversation or anything they want to talk about further. So, but this has
Oh,
been very enjoyable as always.
oh, I agree. This was great. And thank you so much for sharing that. And I will say, go to her website. It is just so beautiful. It just so brings all together what we talked about today. It's such a connection to nature. So, and with that, Deb, I want to wish you a very magical day and magical days till you and I connect again on us Robust Lifestyle Show.
You as well. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. And I would like to thank all of our listeners for listening to this amazing show with our incredible diva, Deb Matlock. Please share this show with all your family and friends, and be sure to check out all the other hosts and their shows on divasthatcare.com. And remember, if you want to start journaling on your connection to nature, just do what Deb said. Just close your eyes and make a scribble, and it'll become so much easier to do it. And you can connect in so many different ways. There were so many good golden nuggets that Deb left with us today. So, with that, I want to wish each of you a very, very magical day. Remember, be kind to all, including your animals, and give your animals a great big extra hug and share all your love with them. Until we connect on Robust Lifestyle, stay strong and healthy.
Thanks for listening. This show was brought to you by Divas That Care. Connect with us on Facebook, on Instagram, and of course on divasthatcare.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss a thing.